All right.
And I'm realizing that we don't have Karine here yet, and she's first on our agenda. Perhaps she's still joining us.
Yeah. Well, we can start. I don't know if there are any members of the public that wish to speak for the public comment. No, we have a few extra people on the Zoom. All right. Hearing none. Yeah. Do you want to continue, Jocelyn? And then if Karine comes on, we can
Great idea.
formally welcome her.
Mhm.
All right. On to number 3. Wow, we're moving right along this evening. Approval of the minutes from July. Thank you, Robert, for sharing those with us.
I will move approval.
Second, by Rose.
Are there any discussion or any items that anyone needed to point out or any changes? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion for approval of the minutes passes. Item 4 is the July vendor report.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Sure. Sorry, I got a little something in my eye. Jocelyn and I were just noticing that I don't think this was emailed out to you this afternoon, so you have not seen this yet. And just a few things I wanted to point out, but feel free to ask questions if you need more time with it. I just wanted to point out on this first page under books, Jocelyn, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see we had a lot of spending in books over the past month. $24,000 is more than you'll typically see per month for us. And that's mainly because we were really backordered with one of our main book vendors, which is Baker and Taylor. And then everything came in. So we had been kind of juggling between our 2 main book vendors, Baker and Taylor and Ingram. We had switched to Ingram due to the supply issues of Baker and Taylor. And then this past month, they were able to fulfill those back orders. So that's why that's nearly $25,000. Typically books per month, you'll see $10,000 to $15,000. So we're just kind of getting caught up a little bit. What else? I think on the second page, Jocelyn, if you scroll down, nothing really out of the ordinary here. I just wanted to point out also now under revenue, you're starting to see revenue coming in for copies, some copies, lost book fines. These were things we were kind of holding off on collecting for a while and then reinstituted within the last couple of months. So you'll start to see revenue coming back in. And that was it. Kind of just go through. If there's any questions, let me know. I think there was just a few next chapter expenses on that last page otherwise.
I'm curious about the library gifts of 25 cents and 20 cents. What's that about?
Those are just kind of those keep the change situations.
Oh,
We actually, we try to channel most, significant gifts into the endowment or next chapter or the Friends, some of those larger, the foundation. We try to encourage folks to donate through those avenues, but a quarter or so comes in here and there, you'll see some change.
Are we on budget?
Yeah.
We'll be reviewing the budget and some recommendations because of our timing that I've got in just a moment.
All right.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the vendor report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
This is Robert. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, our vendor report is approved. Financial review, our 2022 budget proposals.
Before we jump into that, I just wanted to take a moment to take a peek at our gifts in the balance sheet of funds held outside the city. Rebecca, anything that you would like to note with this spreadsheet this month?
Not really, no significant gifts that came in those first three categories, but you can see the growth just from interest there, which is always interesting and nice to see. And then just our spending of the disbursement from the Friends for the operating account this year. So that goes down each month. The other ones you'll see go up.
Any questions on gifts held outside the city? Okay. Oops. Sorry for all the sharing back and forth here. Let me get to the right screen. All right, so I just wanted to review our timeline because each year it's always a bit of a shuffle between the months of the end of July and about mid-September with the City Finance Department, the Library Board, the South Central Library System Board, and our vendor wills. So just a reminder on a couple of dates and then a recommendation I have. So I get the spreadsheets that all of the city departments update at the end of July. And then we have the due date for those usually right about at the end of August. So right in the middle there is the library board meeting. In order for the library board to approve the proposal to the finance and personnel committees, which will then go into the common council and the public hearing process, I need to have several other budgets approved, such as the budget from the South Central Library system, and then also our renewals through wills, which I'll go into depth in just a few minutes about what those constitute. So our timing here is always a little iffy. So what I'd like to do for the 2022 budget tonight is review where some of our major decisions are happening within the operating budget, because right now I'm still waiting on some back and forth with our finance department on the personnel stuff. So if that is amenable to you, and we can review all of the materials and then you can take any action to delay or approve whatever you'd like. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. We've had to do this in years past. I want you guys to have time to be able to look and digest and put all of these pieces together. And I also don't want you to have to approve something and then me come back again and say, oh, wait, now this changed, or the recommendation from my meeting with Bill and Mike is this or this. So this is sort of our timeline. So I can give the budget recommendation as to the best of my knowledge that I have to Bill on Friday. And then all of the city departments meet with the finance department and city administration. And then we go through all of the decision items or projections, account by account, along with our projected revenues for the coming year. These are really the meetings where we can dig into any changes or concerns that we have, or a chance to move things around or transfer funds between accounts. Up until then, I don't have a lot of opportunity to work closely with Bill and Mike to be able to make those things happen. Then the Finance Committee has the meetings scheduled for the 9th and the 23rd. I requested that the library present to the Finance Committee on the 23rd, so that on September 14th, the library board can really take a holistic look at the entire budget and have time prior to the 14th to really digest the budget. The South Central Library has a system. Their board finalizes their budget on the 23rd. We have proposals and projections from them that we review and vote on at the directors' meetings in July. But those can change and have been subject to change based on that South Central Library System board decision. So for example, I believe it was 2019, our costs were like $2,100 over. This last year, I think our costs were like $180 over. So there can be some adjustments that happen. So far, they haven't been anything that we haven't been able to absorb, but I like to have it down to the dollar as best I can. Those are things that are set in stone and once they're approved, and we should be able to budget those exactly. The joint city personnel and finance committee meet together at the end of September. And then the public hearings are scheduled right now for November 3rd. And then the final approval along with the property tax levy is scheduled for the 16th. So before I come back to the follow-up from the investment questions that we had at our last meeting, I'd like to review where we're at right now with our budget and then go over some of the operating changes and decision items for 2022. Any questions so far? Okay. So a review of our revenue. We're really looking most closely at the total fund expenditures, and then also our intergovernmental revenue, because this is where the majority of our revenue comes from. So our base budget is set with two different formulas that form a combined total through the Dane County formulas and standards for library service. And this is the account fund 212, account 4344. So this is projected to be the same for 2022. We receive this funding because the Common Council from the City of Middleton votes every year on a resolution to remain tax exempt, allowing us to then receive that fund. In order to remain tax exempt, that resolution indicates that they will transfer in from the general fund the minimum commitment to meet the standard for exemption. So that's where this transfer in the 480 or 4811 account comes in. The 4342 account, cross-county border reimbursement, is a variety of counties that I'll show you here. So here's our funding for 2022. The transfer in from the City of Middleton's general fund, the contribution from Dane County, and I did not update that one, sorry. That was from last year. I'll come back to that. And then our cross-county reimbursements this year, or for 2022, is looking like quite a bit less. So we're looking at a total cross-county reimbursement of $3,136, which is down from last year. So let me go back to that other screen really quick. So our total from Dane County is actually over 944,000, not that 88, sorry. I need to update that. And you can see that last year, or this year rather, we received $14,908 from the cross-county reimbursements. Because use was so down, those cross-county reimbursements are also down. The Dane County Public Library Board that oversees all of the county services outside of municipalities, this includes the 2 bookmobiles, voted to maintain the budget for all Dane County Library reimbursements for the year 2022 based on the same figures that we all received in 2021. So that was extremely generous. We're all very grateful and thankful that they made that decision ahead of time, so we know exactly what to expect and how to budget. Generally, those 2 formulas are based on 2 different factors. One includes things like circulation, the items of inventory. The other includes things like the square footage of our facility and the size of our municipalities. So technically, and if you look back at past budgets, you'd see two accounts there, because those 2 formulas used to be cut in 2 separate checks, and now they come in one. So that's where our intergovernmental revenue comes from. Any questions on that before I dive into operating stuff? So looking at our current budget right now, year to date, we're in really good shape. We're expecting to have a fund balance in several of our accounts, primarily the 110 salaries full-time. And this is because we have a big vacancy with one of our department heads right now. This is the position that's being reorganized into a deputy director position that we talked about at the last meeting. I'm expecting us to go a little bit over in our part-time permanent position line, 111. And we're right on target with our part-time non-permanent positions in the 112 account, which is our pages. These are the unclassified employees. Our benefits are pretty close to being right exactly where they need to. Our dental insurance is down just a little bit, but I suspect as people schedule those teeth cleanings and have work done for the rest of the year, that'll change. Oftentimes employees will use their health flexible savings account to be able to pay for things, and often schedule things at the end of the year. So those funds can accrue throughout the year, and then they'll have their dental work done or other medical needs scheduled for the last quarter. All of our other accounts are looking like we're in pretty good shape. I don't have any major concerns. You can see where we're over, such as periodicals and our link services. It's not by much, it's just by a little. This is, for example, in the 232 account, a change in subscription costs, very minor. And in the 310, the link services, this is our costs for our SCLS fees and membership. Because of the SCLS board's decision to change a couple of things after we've already submitted our budget, that's where we came up with $189.51 short. These 3 accounts down at the bottom here are still showing up in the way that I have to run these reports in our financial system, but the way that you'll see them moving forward in the spreadsheets is separate. This has to do with our fund balance from previous years, and that carries over each year. So we'll come back to that because that's going to be a big discussion probably in September and October for the board. Any questions on the current 2021 budget year to date before I talk about the 2022 budget?
A couple questions.
Mhm.
So can you scroll down to the bottom? So you said we're going to have a fund balance of how much?
I don't know the exact projection yet because a lot of it has to do with that personnel account, especially the 110. And I'm waiting to work with Jessica and Bill on that. Anytime we have the way that the budget is reconciled is, say we are overexpended in 111 and a couple of these other miscellaneous operating accounts, but we're underspent in 110. The entire budget is reconciled and then balanced at the end, and Bill handles all of that. So I have a couple other questions for Bill about what that entails before I'm ready to really finalize what our projections are looking at. But as you can see, we're only expended, by 56% as of today, and this includes the last pay period.
And we only have a third of the year to go.
That's right.
Okay. And my recurring question is this the meeting where we decide whether we're going to accept the transfer from the endowment fund?
No, at the last meeting and several previous meetings, you guys have indicated that you didn't want to do that. So I haven't taken any action with the Madison Community Foundation. If you wanted to put that as an agenda item and formally take action on not accepting it, we could do that. It's only historically ever been on the agenda if we were to take the disbursement.
Oh, so if we don't contact them, they don't give us anything. We don't have to deny it. We just have to request it or not request it.
That's correct.
Great. Okay, then we're done with that. Yeah, then I'm done as far as the budget.
Okay. Any other questions on 2021? Okay, then let's take a quick peek at our operating budget for 2022. And then I want to dive a little bit deeper into two of these accounts. So this is the workbook that you can expect to see in the coming weeks prior to the next board meeting. Taking a quick look at our revenue. Here's where you can see in the 4342, we have a deficit of $11,750 in our cross-county reimbursement. We have cost to maintains in the 4344 coming from Dane County in those two formulas. Copies and faxes. We always try every year to make this an even budget between our revenues that we're expecting and then the costs that you'll see in the operating budget. Generally speaking, we exceed the operating costs, thus making money off of copies and faxes. In 2020 and 2021, this has not been the case. So we're seeing a shortfall in the copies and faxes last year and this year. The 4811 is the transfer in from the general fund. Then I wanted to circle back to investments. So at our last meeting, we had, I proposed a couple of questions and asked for some direction on exploring opportunities and options for library funding investment. And whoops, wrong one. So I reached out to Bill Burns at the finance department, along with Mark Eibach at the South Central Library System. And I just wanted to read what their responses were. And I put these in this document, which I'll give to Robert or Rebecca for the minutes. So that way we have a permanent record of them. So I'll just read this really quick. Bill Burns says the city does not, the city does report and pay sales tax for library copies and printing. So that happens automatically. And when Barb Weber compiles the monthly sales tax information for all departments, I pay this to the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, I meaning Bill. If you look at the library copies and fax revenue account pre-pandemic, you will see the monthly debits for the amount of the sales tax payments. I recommend that the library continue to use the option in Chapter 43 and the DPI guidance to transfer funds to the municipal treasurer for investment. That would be Bill. He serves as the municipal treasurer. Managing funds, investing, and accounting for these transactions are core services that we provide, and we have good systems in place to do these tasks efficiently. The Fund 204 and 212 funds are part of the city's pooled investment portfolio. This allows us to manage a larger portfolio and take advantage of laddering investments to gain additional yield on longer maturities while still ensuring that we have the liquidity to meet cash flow needs. The library receives an interest allocation based on the average balance of their funds as a percentage of the total portfolio. In 2020, Fund 204 received $674 in interest, and Fund 212, so that's the revenue is 204 and the operating is 212. 212 received $4,549. So that's a 1.3% of the average balance of those funds. And that is in an environment where short-term rates went to near zero, with a one-year treasury bill earning 0.10% by the end of the year. I looked into two different state statutes that specifically speak to investment funds for nonprofits. Chapter 43 is, of course, the chapter that governs and regulates the state law for public libraries in the state of Wisconsin. And 66 deals specifically with nonprofits. So 66 is fairly restrictive in allowable investments with the goal of providing a high level of security for those funds invested. I think the city's investment policy and portfolio operate well within the parameters allowed by the state. I think that setting up a separate investment program for library funds separate from the rest of the city funds would be less efficient and would lose those advantages of operating within a pooled portfolio. Then Mark Eibach says
I'm sorry, this is Robert. I'm just going to interrupt really quickly just to say goodbye to all. I'm running to my next meeting, so thank you. And sorry, I have to leave. Bye.
Thanks, Robert. Then Mark Eibach says the information Bill provided is indeed correct. It is important to clarify that any funds from the municipal appropriation, county reimbursements, this includes the home county, such as the reimbursement from Dane, or the adjacent county, those list of adjacent counties that made up that other cross-county reimbursement, all fines and fees must be held by the municipality. So this really clarifies that question you had, Art, if we could take our fund balance and invest that outside of the city. So the official answer to that, even though it is not necessarily easy to find in the statutes, is a no. Mark says the only option for investing options are gifts and donations, which the library board can choose to put in a bank account, invest in certificates of deposit, put into the SCLS Foundation or other community foundation, or other investment options. The board can also choose to have the municipality invest those dollars, but is not limited by state statutes as where it can invest. SCLS faces the same limitations with System Aid and must be invested in less risky funds to ensure little or no loss. So we already do this. We have some funds invested with SCLS Foundation, which were displayed on that spreadsheet that Rebecca updates each month, which is so far earning about 7.58% for the year. Because of recent investments from the management fee from First Business Bank, which has declined to 4.9%, as always the case, funds invested with the South Central Library System Foundation are fully available to member libraries, and they do charge an annual management fee, but it's very minimal. So this, I think, gives us a lot of really good direction. And I've also invited Bill to come to our November meeting to talk a little bit more about what some of those investments might look like. Any questions on that before I jump back to the 2022 budget?
Yes, sorry.
Nope, don't be sorry. I appreciate your questions, Art.
So if the Friends were really having great success with fundraising, since that is not funds that are appropriated by the city or the county or anybody else, those are donations. They could choose to place that money into the endowment fund that we have with Dane County or Madison Endowment Fund, whatever it's called. Is that correct?
Yes.
What they're saying?
Yes, that is correct. Now, with an endowment, those funds are not liquid. We just
Right.
receive the disbursement off of it. So the higher the balance, the larger the disbursement,
Right.
but the balance would not necessarily be available unless we wanted to close out the endowment.
Yeah, actually, I don't know what all the rules of this endowment, the endowment funds are, but sometimes that's not an option. Principal has to stay. You only can collect on the interest. That's the whole reason for having an endowment fund. It's in perpetuity. So I don't think you can close it out ever. Usually that's the way they usually are set up. But in any case, so that would really be the only option, or a large donor who wanted to just donate money to the endowment fund. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so our 2022 budget so far with our revenues is looking like it's about $15,000, $15,750 short of where it was last year. So that being said, let's pop over to our operating and see where this is looking. So again, I'm working on the personnel stuff with Bill and Jessica and the finance department. But if we look down here at everything under the operating, we have a couple of changes. So we have a savings of $723 with our 2022 periodical costs. We have a slight increase, and I don't know why this wasn't included in our budget previously. There's some things that I've asked for a little bit of clarification from our city clerk, because there's some things with postage that the city covers and some things that we cover, such as our interlibrary loans, which are significantly less than they have been in past years. So I'm budgeting for a request of $350 for 2022. The 270, the 280 rather, communications budget line. This is $1,200 that is dedicated to a reimbursement for the director's cell phone. I'm recommending that this gets absorbed into the regular operating budget and eliminated. As much as I like the reimbursement, there are other staff, especially on management team, that use their cell phones just as much as I do. This also really, I think, should be per open records laws and requests a separate phone. And I don't really want a separate phone. I don't want to have to carry two phones around. So I'm recommending that this account gets canceled for 2022 and moving forward. So that then creates a savings of $1,200 there. Our link services, again, this 310 account is the South Central Library System fees and membership costs. So let's take a quick dive a little bit deeper into what that looks like. So I will include this link in for the minutes as well. This is all of the SCLS members. You'll see the dates on this are 2021 and 2020. This is past fees, this link right here. And the 2021 dates will get updated after this budget is approved by the SCLS board. So across the top here, we have the library's name, the 2021 digital buying pool. This is our overdrive fees along with Advantage program. So these two first columns right here have to do with our digital library and the Wisconsin Digital Library Consortium. So you can see here, and I'm sorry, the spreadsheet is like really a monster. See if I can make it just a little bit bigger. So we pay 17,000 or are set to pay $17,398 for our overdrive services. All of the systems in the state of Wisconsin pool together, and that's how those materials and licenses are purchased digitally. The Advantage program is an extra bump of licenses for titles that have high holds lists and are very popular or could be available immediately. So we pay a little bit extra to be able to do that. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated because these two fees right here, we pay for in a different account in our operating budget. So we'll get back to that in a little bit. So these two really have to deal with materials, and we pay for them in a different account than that link account. We choose not to participate in the transparent language program because we purchase a separate program called Mango. The 2021 infrastructure pays for system infrastructure fees and things like the consultants that are available for things like strategic planning, facility services, support with the annual report, things like that. The network fees, along with the PC support and the Get It program, are all things that I've hardline negotiated with South Central Library System as needs that Middleton does not have because we have the dedicated IT support through Patrick Williams's position. If we were to not able to rehire for a turnover and a vacancy with Patrick's position, or something were to change there, this is where we would see significant increases. And you can start to see, and I'll send this out so that you can take a closer look if you would like to what other libraries are paying. But I know like this is Madison right up here. They pay $77,000 for their network services. These are things that I've negotiated that we shouldn't have to pay because we're not using them. So this is a bit of a menu style approach to services at the system level. The column of 2021 ILS, the $55,334 has to do with our ILS is short for Integrated Library System, otherwise known as the catalog. This also includes the updated app that was just rolled out in, I think last month. So our catalog, or the online link cat, which is one of the reasons why this account is called the link account, costs us over $55,000 a year to participate in. This is also the biggest service that we receive from the system besides delivery. you'll see that our delivery line is empty. And that is because right up here, this 196,000, this is Dane County. The delivery fees are organized through the county. And we're right down here at this $104,411. So this is where that comes in. Oops. Let me bounce back to our spreadsheet. So here we go back to the 310 link services. And I included those Dane County delivery costs in this just to give us a little bit of extra buffer. And we're looking at an increase of about $2,103. So that's what makes up this account line. We get invoiced somewhat bizarrely for our services through South Central Library System. So sometimes the invoices are hard to decipher when they're coming through on the vendor report, but you can see that they almost always will line up in with a category in one of those columns. So this is one of the most complicated accounts. The directors also vote on all of these in July with a weighted vote. So based on the size of your municipal population, you have a higher vote weight than another library. It's somewhat redundant in a way because Madison is so much bigger that in order to outvote Madison, we have to like really organize ourselves and have a little coup. So it doesn't happen very often, but that's how those budgets are individually decided in each of those columns. Any questions on the 310 account before I move on? Okay, the 315 outside services is our cleaners. This is expected to stay the same. Electronic resources is the other somewhat complicated and timely account. So 330 electronic resources. Let me show you all of the resources that constitute this budget. So we have the vendor right here in the first column and the product that they provide. Most of these are renewed through a state nonprofit called WILS. They do collective bargaining and negotiating on behalf of libraries, and we can choose to individually, work with them on a variety of different resources. So this is where you'll see things like consumer reports, Mango languages, book list, Creative Bug. Almost all of these are negotiated through WILS, and then they set the collective budget and also include a fee with that. Most oftentimes, the consortium price that they negotiate, even though it includes a fee, will still be lower than what we could afford on our own independently as a municipal library. This line 15 right here, the Overdrive digital media buying pool, we include this in that account, in the 330 account. So even though it's set from the system and included in our system fees, we pay for it out of our budget, out of the 330. So looking at, and this is actually 2022, sorry. So looking at the 2022 price, we're looking at $34,438. And that's where you will see that reflected right here. So we have a savings of $7,808 in the 330 account for 2022. Other than that, we're looking at a fairly straightforward budget for 2022. I really hesitate to start shaving funds from mileage and staff training and development, because once you take those funds away and allocate them towards something else, they're very difficult to build back up. And in regular operating years, you can see that we have really used those funds. So I feel like that could be a slippery slope with those two accounts in particular. Our programming account, 490, this is the account that we'd like to grow over the coming years and long term. So the 490 programming account was historically formed for the purpose of a grant that was received through Monsanto to support a media maker program. This money was almost entirely dedicated to the execution and presentation of media maker programs, where we contracted with individuals to be able to make that programming happen, just like we would a program performer or something like that. Because it was done through a grant, and with previous budget years, we were able to make this a permanent account line. The Media Maker program has evolved over the last 5 to 7 years, and we are looking at providing the similar services in a little bit different way and doing those internally and using our staff and switching it up a little bit with who we contract with to help provide support for those services. So on previous vendor reports, you'll almost entirely see the 490 account expended to the individual Brian Miles. He is also a wonderful teacher at the school district here in Middleton and has really done an amazing job of bringing the Middleton Library into the 21st century with technology programming for kids. Because of his efforts, we're really able to build off of what he's grown and the kids that he's recruited to participate in the programs. They've been extremely popular over the years, and we're really looking forward to being able to gather again in person, to be able to do them in person and not just virtually. So right now, or in years past rather, that was almost entirely dedicated to contracts, mostly with Brian. Moving forward, we'll start to see those expended in a little bit different way. So our total savings right now with the operating budget is $7,278. And that's where we're coming in for the operating funds. So my next steps will be to continue working with Bill and Jessica on the wages and benefits, and then a bit of an iterative process back and forth to get us to a balanced budget so that we can go to the city finance and personnel committees and just present a cost to maintain. I'm very confident that we can get there and that we can make up for that $15,000 discrepancy with what we have. The proposed staffing reorg includes several new positions, two in particular that support community engagement and outreach, and the second that is dedicated to communications and social media. Those are two positions and a good example of where we might shave some of those personnel costs back and include that in an updated 5-year staffing plan moving forward. So this is what our 2022 budget is shaping up to be. It's pretty straightforward this year. And then I also have the capital budget to share with you too. Before I do that, are there any questions on the 212 fund? Okay, let me share the capital. Oops. and I did not have this open. The capital budget, also very straightforward and pretty simple since we have just almost completed the next chapter project. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so our capital improvement plan is always done on a 4-year planning process. And we designate where the funds are expected to come from, and then we go through a justification process as to why they're needed. So moving forward, I have identified, and these are also carryover from previous year, so you'll see a lot of repeats. Restroom, a vehicle, exterior signage, and mechanical. Then on the narrative side, we go through what each of those look like. These are things that we don't necessarily need like right now, even though it could be an immediate need. Some of these, like the restroom and the exterior signage in particular, and to the mechanical too, to a certain extent, are really dependent upon what the long-term plan is for the facility. We don't want to be dumping $75,000 into restroom upgrades without knowing what, you know, the short-term to long-term life of the facility is going to be. Restroom upgrades in particular often will require a closure or are at the very least a really big hassle. So we want to make sure that if we go through a facility project like that, we're getting the most out of our money for the project. So currently there's 6 restrooms in the building, and 2 of them, the 2 single stall unisex restrooms on the lower level right across from the elevator, are the only ones that meet ADA regulations. All the others do not. The vehicle is something that we've been requesting. I think this is the 4th or 5th year. This would be a vehicle for use specifically for community engagement and outreach. Currently, Amy Perry, our community engagement and outreach librarian, puts thousands of miles on her own vehicle every year. She also, up until recently, had to really use her own vehicle for a lot of storage. It's a lot of time and a lot of physical effort to be hauling things in and out of the building, like materials and bins. So a vehicle would be extremely helpful for her visits. This would also really be a great way to showcase the library at events. So like imagine at National Night Out or Cops and Bobbers, or even the Thursday nights that are happening down at the Stonehorse Green right now. Instead of us lugging all of the bins of things down to the event, we could just pull up the vehicle and have whatever we needed to do right in the vehicle and do library information, support, programming right out of the vehicle. There's several libraries in our system that have vehicles, Fitchburg being probably one of the nicer vehicles. I've talked a little bit with the tourism department on graphics for what this could look like. And this has also been identified in the past as a really great project for fundraising. Recently, all city department heads put together proposals for the Common Council for the use of ARPA funds. This is the American Recovery Act funds coming from the pandemic from the federal level. So far from the meetings where we've presented our proposals, it sounds like the council's pretty focused on using those funds for stormwater and infrastructure support and recovery. Should that change, or because they haven't taken formal action on it yet, or there be funds left over, the bookmobile or the vehicle for library community engagement and outreach has been identified as one of the top choices. So that's really exciting. That the Common Council also puts value in the support for the library's presence and efforts outside of the facility. And then we have the sign out front. The sign out front is a bit hard to see in the dark. It's a bit hard to see from the road. It also is not in sync with our updated branding, logo, and messaging. It's also somewhat of a pricey item to replace. And so this is also something that I think could hold off for a couple of years, dependent upon what's happening with the community campus committee. We would probably use the same folks that we did for the interior signage for exterior as well. And then lastly, mechanical. The city inspection department has put together and just recently updated a master facilities plan for all of the city facilities, including the library. So this is the boilers, the AC compressors, anything that has to do with mechanical support. You may not know, but at the library, we have not one, but 2 furnace rooms. Also, all of the city's networked fiber infrastructure that supports emergency services like dispatch run through the library building. So it's really important that we maintain the facility as best as we can as the mechanical continues to age, which is not an easy task because we do not have anyone that's dedicated to facility support at the library or the city in general. We have a cobbled together position from the inspection department that really just kind of runs interference on things, responds to crisis sometimes, and does things like changes light bulbs and assembles furniture. So to the best of my ability, along with support from some longtime staff that know the building really well, we're doing the best we can with trying to schedule regular maintenance on things like the sump pump and things like that. Aging mechanical is a big concern. It's always a big price tag. It also can be dangerous depending on what we're dealing with. Just earlier this year, we had that big flood that I responded to. And that's a perfect situation of I don't even know who to call because I don't really understand what's broken. So this is something that I've been really talking closely with Mike and our HR manager on. So any questions on the capital budget?
I'm just wondering, you just talked about your maintenance programs. You used to have a person dedicated from the city that worked with the library.
Mm-hmm.
Why did that stop?
That's a good question. And right before I arrived here in 2016, that person retired. And instead of rehiring that position, they broke the FTE up and reallocated it in different ways to the inspection department. And
with the money you're spending right now for your cleaning service, you pull that,
mm-hmm.
but hire your own part-time or
Yep.
full-time.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, especially with cleaning and also landscaping. We do that with landscaping, exterior landscaping right now. So the library, the CDA, tourism, the senior center, all collectively pool funds together to pay for landscaping. And that is 1.75 FTE. And it's just seasonal. It goes from May to October. We desperately need the support for facility as well. And it gets very complicated when we have a joint position like we do for landscaping, because we, up until just last year, didn't have an HR person to help facilitate that. And it always gets a little bit trickier when we're dealing with things like vacation leave, and who supervises who and things like that. So I'm hopeful that now that we have Brian in his HR role, we can start to become a little bit more creative with cross-departmental hiring and joint efforts for collective services like facility maintenance. Right now it's the budget, and if Robert were here, I know he would say this too. There is no more funding right now for personnel. We have more capability at the city level for capital projects because that funding comes from a different source. But I don't see anywhere in the near future being able to add funding for someone that's dedicated to facilities.
If you could, you'd have your expertise.
Yes. And
if you were paying for this landscaping FTE, you might have them trim some of the bushes by your book return outside. They're getting a little long over the sidewalk. If you're paying for it, you might as well have them do something.
Any other questions on the capital budget for 2022 through 2026? Okay, so we'll revisit this in September, if that's okay with everyone here.
Since this was an action item, Jocelyn, do we need to formally make a motion to defer it to September? I'll make a motion then to postpone and defer this item. I'm sorry, Ralph, I couldn't hear you.
Isn't September when we actually go through and prove that for 40, even though she's already presented it to the city? What we did last year, September.
Last year, yep, last year was a bit odd because of the pandemic. This year is a bit odd because of the timing with how things are working out. We can, the board approves the proposal. The council sets the budget. So the library board, I can go back and forth in an iterative process with the council, or with, excuse me, the finance department and Bill and Mike prior to that September 23rd meeting. But the budget that's presented at the September 23rd meeting would be the one that would definitely need to be approved by the library board. So up until then, we can try and kind of go back and forth. I try to follow Bill's timeline as closely as possible. Other committees at the city are not governing, so they don't have the same authority that the library board does. So it doesn't, the timing doesn't matter quite as much. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion then to postpone this item to September for our approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, who was that?
Ralph, second.
I think it was Ralph. I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, Ralph. Is anyone else having?
Yes.
Or is it just me?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we'll review that and put that on for an action item in September. While we were just starting the budget item, Jocelyn, I noticed Karine joined us, and I'd like to go back to our formal welcoming and recognition. So welcome, Karine. I know you joined us at the last meeting, but we didn't get a chance to formally introduce you and hear a little bit about you. So welcome as our new trustee. And is there anything you'd like to say as an introduction?
Hi, I apologize for being late. Traffic and technology got the better of me.
Don't worry about it.
I'm excited to join everyone. I grew up in the Madison area and lived in Middleton for a couple years way back. And I've been back here just shortly before COVID. So I'm excited to be able to engage in Middleton again outside of COVID if it ever ends. I have a soon to be fourth grader at Sauk Trail Elementary School, and this will be his third year. He's starting his third year in the Middleton School Districts, and we absolutely love it. And then I have a 2.5-year-old as well. So my hands are pretty busy and full. I am retiring this year from the military, Army Reserves, as you guessed from the uniform last month. And I am transitioning from a job at Edgewood to a job at UW-Madison starting next week. So lots of things going on. Happy to be on board and get to know all of you.
Welcome to
We're
the
happy
board.
to have you.
Yep, welcome to the board.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. So thank you.
Yes, hopefully we'll be able to meet in person at some point.
I really hope so. Okay, committee updates. So we can move. We know our building is on pause, and updates from Development Committee.
Sure. The biggest update from the Development Committee is that we have our next chapter celebration this Friday, 4 to 5:30. We were planning, yay! We completed a major fundraising project in the middle of a pandemic. Way to go, us. We were planning on celebrating with cake. But as you may have seen today, there is a new mask mandate. And so sadly, we have decided to forego the cake so that we're able to best adhere to those mandates. But it will still be fun. We will have loads of flowers. We have a few fun giveaways, including a prize drawing. We will start off with some brief expressions of gratitude and a quick overview of the project itself. We're really hoping that this is a time to not only thank donors, but recognize the contributions from all of our over 400 donors, as well as a special call out to those that participated in the naming rights. We'll take some photos. We will have a tour of the facility and get to walk through the lower level on the meeting room side and see how we have our virtual programming set up behind the scenes and the murals in the meeting rooms and hallway, and hopefully have donors be able to connect with each other as well. So I hope you can make it. We were going to have a call for volunteers to help us serve cake, but instead it will just be trustees representing the library and connecting with the people that made the project possible.
Jocelyn, do you want us to let you know ahead of time if we're coming? Or do you want to hear now if trustees are joining?
Is there anyone that's not able to join? Maybe let Rebecca or I know. Otherwise, we have no idea how many people to expect. We're hoping
Sorry, Jocelyn, I missed the date. When was it?
this Friday,
This Friday at
4 to 5:30.
I will not be able to attend.
Okay.
I will probably not be able to attend because it's my last day at work. And technically I'm still working at that point.
Yeah, we're hoping that we have enough people that it feels like a party, but not too many that it's tight quarters. So we'll see. We have no idea what to expect. This is really the first in-person invited gathering that we've had. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think it's just, it'll be really nice to mark the time. You know, this was a huge project, and even without cake or without a huge event, I think it's just important to kind of put a nice bookend on this project.
All right, thank you. We have an next is nominating committee. So normally our nominating committee really kind of brings forward the slate of officers about once a year. Excuse me. And we did that earlier a few months ago, but now with the transition between Courtney and myself now as president, that left the opening for president-elect. We discussed at the last meeting, or we mentioned the nomination of Jean. And so now this is on for approval for our action in order to formally nominate Jean for the library-elect or president-elect position. Any questions or anything? All right, is there a motion for approval?
I so move that we approve Jean as a president-elect.
Is there a second?
I will-
second the motion.
And I have a question again.
Yeah, Art.
So being president-elect, you could still have a second term and she could still remain president-elect next year. Is that correct?
Could, although typically we try to keep it to 1 year, but if the circumstances needed to be, she could be president-elect a second time and I could be president a second time.
Okay.
I think the bylaws state no more than 2 consecutive terms in a particular officer position.
Right. Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm sorry, was Art the second there?
No.
I thought I
I-
heard Karine.
Karine. Okay. Sorry, can't see everyone.
No worries.
I know, Zoom troubles. Thank you for taking the notes, Rebecca.
Absolutely, no problem.
Liaison updates. I know Robert had to step out, so he was our city council connection. I don't know if there's anything else that anyone else would have on that topic.
I have nothing at this time, but I am anticipating that as we get going with the strategic planning process with the consultants, that we'll have more to share. And I'm not sure how many staff have been appointed, but I have been appointed as one of them as a staff liaison for that project. So I love strategic planning and I'm very excited to pull all of our plans for the whole city together into one vision. So more to come on there.
Very exciting. Art, do you have any updates on the Friends?
Sure. After our last board meeting in July, there was a meeting of the Friends and enough people stepped forward to volunteer to be on the new Friends board that the Friends will not have to dissolve, which is good news. And also the current treasurer who for the Friends, who's Dan Olson, said that he would remain in his position at least through December or January to get through the tax reporting season. So he will also provide support for the new board. And even though the old board members are resigning, they also committed to be available for help in transition from the old board to the new board. So that also was good news. The focus of the new board will be primarily on organization and setting priorities. Fundraising will be addressed at a later time. And the new board also plans to meet with Jocelyn for some discussions. So that is the news about the Friends. And as I was preparing this report, I just had a thought, and it's that perhaps as a show of support from our board to the new Friends board, one thing that we might consider, and this would be purely voluntary, but if we as board members became a member of the Friends group, that might be a way to show our support for the new board. And it's really easy to do. If you go on the library's website and go under Friends, you can click on membership. And I think to be a member of the Friends, I think the lowest contribution is like $10. And obviously you can donate more if you want to, but it might be a nice thing to do. So something to keep in mind if you're so inclined. That's it.
Great. Thank you for the update, Art. Updates from the school district. The first day of school is September 1st. So getting ready for the new school year. Our new staff that are new to the district, our new educators that have been hired began their induction this week. I've been helping facilitate that along with some of my other director colleagues. So it's really great to get to know all the new teachers. The rest of the staff come back next week for the rest of their PD and planning for the school year, although we know teachers, a lot of them have been doing a lot of that over the summer on their own anyway. And then students come back on the 1st. So for the most part, most of our students are returning. We have about 100 students district-wide that have elected to remain what we're calling fully virtual. So a fully remote option due to their concerns about COVID. Otherwise, all other students, just around, the rest of the 7,000 are returning in person 5 days a week to their normal schedule, along with their, masking, of course, as a protocol to help deter any transmission from COVID. And that's getting ready for the school year. We'll once again be in the Good Neighbor Parade as a school district. I know the library does that as well. So if you happen to be around at that point, you can wave to some of us school district members as we're walking by. And that's kind of the update, just getting ready for the school year. A lot happening. And community updates.
This is Rose. The equity meeting has been kind of postponed for a couple of weeks, or a few weeks, actually, the whole month. We've been working on a book called, I tell you, I should have written this down. Well, we've been working on restorative justice with Rudy Bangstrom on Thursday nights, and on Wednesday nights, we're looking at a book that is restorative I'm sorry. I should have had my report ready, and I'm blanking. But anyway, we have not been meeting as an equity as the equity team for the month of August or a part of July, but we will resume soon.
Thanks, Rose. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the amendments for the updates to the room reservation policy. Thanks for sharing that, Jocelyn, and thanks for showing the markups that you made. That made it easy to follow. I appreciated that.
Yes. Let me get that open. All right. Is everybody seeing this Word document okay?
Mhm.
Um, so the library board sets all of the policy per the recommendation of the director and the staff. So it's always good practice to review policies on a regular basis. Back in 2018, late 2018, or maybe it was 19 at this point, we did a major overhaul of all of the policies that are also available and listed on our website. And now we're on a regular rotation to review things either as needed or a set schedule. So as we are recovering from the pandemic and looking to how can we best support gathering in person in large groups, we thought it was a good idea to revisit our room reservations policy. So not necessarily much has changed in relation specifically to the pandemic, but there's some cleanup of the policy that needed to happen regardless. We're also trying, now that we've taken like the broad sweep with all of our policies, as we go back and take a deeper dive into them individually, make sure that we are connecting policy to policy and referring things to referring to them interconnectedly and appropriately, and also cleaning up formatting. And taking out what really is more procedural things than policy related. So the things in red are the things that are changed. This room reservation is in regards specifically to the 4 study rooms and the 2 meeting rooms. So we have the 4 individual study rooms, and then the Friends Community Meeting Room and the Archer rooms that are both, that is one large room that's divisible, that you'll be able to see if you come on Friday. We are hoping to, this section C right here, meeting room reservations can be made in person, by phone, or online. We're working on an online reservation system. Several other libraries use this. Another great example of where they pay for a vendor through something like Demco to be able to provide support for the technology to be able to make those reservations. We can do that proprietarily ourselves through the expertise of our IT department. A few things in here, like allowing time for setup and cleanup, clarifying what is available. We do not charge any fees for the meeting rooms. This is something that the board has discussed at length in the past. And I've had varying experience with room reservations that were charged. It's very challenging for staff to discern what is for profit and what is not. It seems like it should be a very straightforward thing, but it can get very cumbersome and complicated very quickly. Because our meeting rooms were previously, we'll see how it goes into the future, but because they were in such high demand from nonprofits and groups that were open to the public, we've remained free of fees. Some other libraries, like I know Wanakee, charges quite a hefty fee to groups like American Family Insurance and things like that. if we're going to start charging fees to corporate groups such as that, then we also will, of course, start getting requests for better access to technology and things that we may or may not be able to support. So as the staff, we feel very comfortable in keeping the rooms free to nonprofit groups. Otherwise, not much else has changed with the policy. Some of our procedures on the back end have changed a bit, and we were really hoping to start opening up the meeting rooms after Labor Day. The last time we discussed this was early July. Things have changed since then, so we'll be revisiting this at our management team meeting on Monday. This is also, of course, directly related to the gathering of in-person meetings for the library board, which we could talk about after a motion for this. Any questions on the policy?
Jocelyn, stop right there where it says nothing posted currently. So what do we do? What are you going to do with that? Should we take kitchen procedures are posted above the sink, take it out, or what do you want?
No, this this is like a to-do for us. Sorry, I maybe should have taken that out.
Okay, that's all. That's the only question I had.
Yeah.
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Art. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, why don't you
All those in
strike that?
favor? Oh, sorry, Ralph. I
Why don't
couldn't hear you.
strike that thing you didn't mean to put in there? Why don't you strike the nothing posted currently that you didn't want to put in there? Can you hear me?
That's just
Oh, yeah. So it's not part of the policy. It was just a reminder to post,
Okay,
to actually post that. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we have a new updated policy. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to specifically Liz Zimdars, who helped to review that policy and discuss it with her staff.
Thanks. Okay, director's report.
Right. So just a quick breeze through the month of July and a quick look forward to the rest of August. Community partnerships are still going extremely strong despite the pandemic. In July, we offered 16 programs outside of the library with 784 attendees. And I put / or connections because each time, for example, this is Liz featured here down at the Stone Horse Green. We have someone come up to, when we're at an event like this, and we have someone come up to the table and say, hey, I've been wanting to download, tell me about how to do that. Or I need to register for a library card, or I want to chat with you about a program idea or something like that. We count that as an attendee at an outreach event. So they're also kind of considered connections. So that's extremely exciting and a really great example and demonstration of the hard work that staff does, and especially Amy leading the charge there. I have been working with the city planning department on the cycle program. I included the link there. This is the electric bikes that you pay for that you can also have a membership for. This is going to City Council and the CDA, excuse me, for approval, and they're possibly looking at using tourism dollars, specifically room tax, to help support that project. If we were to have the City Council approve this, the library would be one of the sites for the bicycles, and they are separate stand alone stations, not the old, because they're now electric. So the technology with the bicycles has updated a little bit over the years. So instead of the big rack of bikes, it's a standalone little station with a little kiosk. So there's a lot more flexibility as to where you can install them. So this is something that we would be looking at for 2022. And we would have a couple installed at the library, and we would have a free checkout of the bicycles available at the library. So we'd most likely have 2. And these would be free, and we would work as library staff as to how we would make that available. At the Madison Library, they have, I believe, just 1 available for free checkout. At the Penny Library, we're at the entrance of their new facility and building, which is a whole block redevelopment program. They have a big bicycle parking shelter. And B-Cycle is represented there. Our study rooms use is starting to pick back up. We had the study rooms were booked 222 times. So that's 222 sessions or bookings for the month of July at 494 hours. That's pretty significant. We also are continuing programming. Here's a really great picture of the use of the green space adjacent to City Hall, right across from the library. When I was writing this report before I went on vacation, Mike Davis, our city administrator, had called for a mask mandate to be required for all city employees working in combined work areas or with the public directly. And now, of course, we've had that updated from Madison-Dane County Public Health. We are working with the YWCA on an MOU agreement that would have include the library as a community partner site for restorative justice circles. This is when a juvenile is either identified by the court system or has an interaction with a resource officer or educator, and will often use a restorative justice circle strategy and technique to come to a resolution rather than going straight to a conviction of a crime or a punishment. These have been proven to be very effective for re-syndication and are based in Indigenous culture. So we're happy to be able to move forward, hopefully, with the library as a site designated as a safe place for that. We would not be involved with those directly as staff unless we were involved in the incident itself. We would be serving simply as a host site and making a safe space available. This is a sneak peek as to what you can kind of expect to see on Friday with the behind the scenes tour. And we're really looking forward to Friday. It's been really fun the month of July having so many kids back in the building. We've had a lot of card registrations, a lot of really great program attendance continuing to happen online. Our visitor counts have continuously gone back up, and for the month of July, we had just over 19,000 people. So to give you a bit of an indication as to what that looks like, previous to the pandemic closure, we were averaging close to 30,000 people. So we're about halfway or so as to our visitor count pickup from where we were before the pandemic. Here's a little bit of what that looks like. In terms of our performance statistic measures. So you can see the month of April, May, June, and July, we're continuing to grow. It's a slow but steady recovery. Something that has stayed the same has been the number of holds that we're receiving. And this is really interesting because we Ralph, if you don't mind, I just muted you. We're getting a lot of feedback noise. So please let me know if you need me to unmute you. Previous to the pandemic closure, we were, we borrow and we loan to other libraries within the South Central Library System. And then we have interlibrary loan that's outside of the system in the state in addition to that. So we borrow about 11 to 12,000 items. So those are all of the red bins that come into, I'm sorry, we loan those out. So these are the red bins that come in and out of the library for hold. So when you place a hold to be picked up at the Middleton Library, but you know that your book is coming from Madison or Verona or one of our other libraries, that's an incoming hold. In 2017, early 2018, we were about balanced with how many items we loaned and how many items we borrowed. And since then, we've steadily increased the number of items that we borrow, where the number of items that we loan out has stayed the same. So this affects our Dane County formula to a certain extent. Not a lot, but really it's an indicator of workflow. So throughout the pandemic and even earlier this year, we were borrowing about 16 to 18,000 items. So that was how many items were coming in delivery in the red bins. And we've maintained that this whole time. So the number of holds that we've been providing through curbside service and during express, and now that we're reopened to our regular operating hours, has not necessarily changed. What has changed significantly is the way that we manage that processing. Previously, all of that processing of those thousands and thousands of items was happening on the public desk. We've pulled that off of the public desk so that we can focus on improving the customer service experience as part of the Next Chapter project and just the 21st century in general, and moved that processing to the back room. So over the last couple of months, we've been working really hard to iron out what those processes and procedures look like. So that's an interesting workflow piece that we've been really working hard to adjust. One thing that we have not discussed in terms of the 2022 budget is Sunday service. And this is something that I'm hoping to talk with management team about on Monday, because now we're entering into another round of somewhat restrictive services and looking at the possibility of rolling back. At this point, and we're not back up to full speed yet with our door counts. I'm really thinking that Sunday service for 2022 is probably a no-go. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the best use of our limited funding at this time, especially because we are open all day Saturday and until 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. But it's definitely something that we need to continue planning for in the future, and is something that was identified at the library board retreat as a measure for improving our equity and access to the building. So that's something that we're going to be planning for and talking a lot more in depth about as we move forward. If you're interested in participating and representing your library in the parade, Amy Perry is organizing a hearty group of walkers that would like to walk alongside the big 36-foot bookmobile from Dane County, and also the Dream Bus that will be representing the library in the parade. It is a hefty walk. It's often very hot, but it's a lot of fun. And if you ever want to feel the love, there's nothing like walking in a parade and having thousands of people yell that they love you to make you feel good. So kids and pets are invited to participate. We've had some staff in the past that have pushed strollers and brought their pets or ridden their bikes. So if you're interested in that, feel free to corral some friends or family and let Amy know that you'd like to be there. Any questions on the report? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Should we talk about the format for the September meeting? I know at one point we talked about coming back in person. There was some discussion about maybe a hybrid approach. And yet there was then maybe some concern with technology, or maybe not knowing if we had the right setup to do a hybrid meeting. And so what are your thoughts at this point?
Two updates for you in regards to this. The first is the technology. So at this point, we are not equipped with the technology to be able to successfully implement a hybrid. We're working on it. As the two last pieces of the Next Chapter project are the technology upgrades in the Archer meeting room, along with the remaining furniture. I just reached out today to try and push those along. Things with vendors like furniture and tech stuff is a glacial pace. It is very slow right now. It's hard to get work done. You probably know this from the construction projects at the school district, Mary Beth. So I'm pushing to get those done so that we can really discuss the fund balance too, because that's a big piece of our budget. And as we look towards possibly having a fund balance for this year as well, having a plan for expending that is really important. And that's something that the Finance Committee and the Council will be expecting from us. So we don't have the technology quite yet to be able to make that hybrid happen, but we're working on it. So that's one piece. The hybrid is not quite there yet. The second thing is, if Robert were here, I know he would want me to mention this. The City Council has indicated that they are moving back to virtual. So that, to a certain extent, has set the precedence for the library board and other city committees. Of course, it is the library board's decision on how and when you would like to meet. But that is an important piece to share at this point, I think. So that's all the information I have. Otherwise, this is a decision that's made by you guys.
I would like to keep it virtual.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm fine in person or virtual. I think one way or the other. If we aren't ready for a hybrid, I don't want to do that. I think it's hard for people in the room or people out of the room to hear people in the room, especially if the people in the room are masked. And I feel like it makes it then more restrictive too for the public who may be wanting to observe the meeting virtually, when half are in person and half are not. So if people would prefer to stay virtual, I would be fine with that as well. I'm not sure if other people have an opinion and they'd like to chime in.
I'm in agreement with Mary Beth.
Anyone else? So at this point then we'll be virtual then, I think, for September, since we'd rather do one way or the other. And we have a couple people preferring to stay virtual. And this seems to be working for us. We've been doing it for a while now, since March 2020. All right, so our next meeting will follow then again the Zoom link that will come out on the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Well, thank you for a wonderful meeting, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Mary Beth
Thanks.
and Jocelyn and Rebecca.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.